Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan, and I work for Senior Planet. And one of my the main part of my job is to manage our social media platform, Senior Planet's community. And today, I'm very pleased to announce the photography showcase, photography showcase event. And we have four amazing artists who are also members of the Fun with Photography group on the social media platform, Senior Plan Community. And we will be starting with John Durham, and who will be our presenter. And John, take it away.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. I want to welcome everybody and hope that you will, if you have not already been to our page, Fun with Photography, that you will do so, because this is what we're trying to do, is build a community that shows you what is possible with photography. We want you to become a part of it and share with us your visions and what you have done with photography, and hopefully grow and expand with that as well. Next. Photography is an art form open to everyone. If you look at the root of the word photography, photograph means to paint with light. And so you can just take a photograph, but you can also make it much more than that. And that's one of the things that you will see when you visit this page and when you work with it more and more, as you expand your capabilities in both taking photographs and in editing them. And hopefully we can work with you to help you do that. Next. If you have a camera, you can express yourself. There's not a whole lot that you can't do with it. Supermarket flowers, a camera, a tripod, and a little bitty, inexpensive pen light. That's all it takes sometimes to create some really imaginative kind of works of art. All you have to do is play around, because remember, in the digital age, film is free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Next. You can go outside to see all around you. Those of you that live in urban and suburban areas have tremendous, almost unlimited possibilities. And those of us who live in less developed and rural areas still do as well, if you know where to look and what to go for. But it's always there for you. Notice the picture on the left in the upper left-hand corner. I left that there on purpose. Please always edit your photographs. It's always worth doing, but I left that there to show, if you do nothing else, crop your photographs. Next. You can stay inside and make images. I had a tremendous amount of recovery from 2 major back surgeries. Could not go outside, could not do much of anything, but I could stay inside and I could work with things that were available to me. And all you have to do is practice and play around with things. You can learn from people on the internet. You can find ways to manipulate light and shadow and form. Next. Nature's always there for you. There's endless possibilities. Sometimes it's seasonal, but it's there if you want to take the time and slow down and get out. And that's one of the benefits of photography, is that it makes you not only get up and get out if you're able, and even if you're not fully able, you can still do that, but it encourages you to be engaged. And studies have shown the more you're engaged, the better you feel, and probably the longer and happier you'll live. Next. This is from a local park that I visit. Matter of fact, I was there yesterday, and this same little branch and the same little tree was growing out of this same exact spot. Go back to the places that you visit time and time again and see what they look like from day to day, hour to hour, season to season. It's worth doing, because the more familiar you are, the better your photographs will be, and the more you will enjoy them. Next. Seasonality. Take advantage of it. Plant a pot of flowers and see what happens. You never know who will show up. And sometimes you get some pretty amazing things from it. And it's just fun to be around those things. Next. And always carry your camera with you. Serendipity means finding something unexpected. And when you do, that can be the sweetest thing of all. You find something you weren't looking for, and you just happen to have that camera ready. So always carry it with you, whether it's your cell phone or your pocket camera or your big DSLR, but always carry it with you. Next. Again, inside. What you can do inside is so unlimited with just a little bit of light and shadow and a little bit of time and patience. Next. And those good old supermarket flowers. I mean, I get so much joy out of them, it's not even funny, especially as they start to fade, because there's beauty, as a biologist, I say, in the fading as well as in the blooming. And you get to see stages, and everything that you take a photograph of, you can look back on and say, yeah, there's something there that was important to me then. Next. You can learn to do a lot of different neat things. These came from a workshop online that I did during the pandemic, and it's simple. It's a computer screen, glass that's filled with water, plexiglass set down, not hard to do. But again, you've got to get out and look at different things and investigating what other people do. I always used to tell teachers that I trained, if you want to reach for the heavens, you've got to stand on the shoulders of giants. So you have to learn from others. Next. Flowers again, yep, supermarket flowers and a couple of little cheap laser pointers. Kind of fun what you can do with those. Be careful, please. Don't shoot them at airplanes. That would not be a good thing. But playing around with them with flowers, that's fun. Next. You don't need anything really. You just wander around and look for stuff. Tell stories with your pictures. What is this? What's it doing there? What's going on? That's one of the great powers in photographs, is it tells or it makes you think about a story. It may not be the right story, but that's okay. It's your story. Next. What's going on here? What's this bird up to? I know what he's up to. He's waiting for me to fill the feeder so he can get some food. But you don't know that. Next. Strange new ways of seeing. That's a sterling silver serving spoon sitting on top of my Fire tablet with a projected image. Yeah, that occupied a couple of weeks. Fun trying these things. Next. But photography is always about the subtleties of light and color. Play with it sometime. Sit down with an object different times of day by a window and watch as the light changes. Everything is about light and color, even if you're photographing in black and white. So give yourself a chance to experiment and play. Again, film is free. You don't have to worry about it. If you don't like the images you got, delete them. No problem. But try something. Experiment, because that's how you learn. Next. And sometimes just have some fun. Just have some fun. These came from a site that I used to belong to that was a weekly challenge site. It wasn't a contest or anything. They would just put out a prompt, and you had to take one photograph and submit it to this prompt. The one on the right was for a product. Okay, sure, why not? The one on the left had to do with mirrors and things. I call the one on the left Three Frog Night. Next. But more than anything, let your imagination go. That's what photography can do. It can take you out of the commonplace into the extraordinary. And the more that you work with it, the greater your imagination will soar, and the more you will enjoy it. Okay, that's that part. Let me just run through quickly a few photography genres. Next. Nature photography. You can shoot wildlife or you can shoot woodland. These both came from that same area where I showed you that little sapling shooting up. Very easy. Everybody probably has some access through parks or things, but quite a range there. Next. Landscapes. Some people, Deb's going to show you some of her beautiful landscape work on rivers with horizons, beautiful vistas. We don't have those in West Tennessee. We've got cornfields and soybean fields and cotton fields and a lot of pastures. But sometimes those pastures are beautiful. And sometimes if you tweak the photograph a little bit, the country roads can be quite beautiful too. Next. There's always people in portraits. I hate taking portraits. I don't like it because everybody has got an opinion. Folks, I'm a writer, my family, that's my niece with her firstborn. They wanted me to take this picture right there in that place at that time. I didn't want to do it. The light was bad. That baby was not sitting still. That's why her face is fuzzy. Stop it. The one on the left, that's my kind of portrait. Candid, nobody knew I was there. I can take those kind. Hope yours are better than mine. Next. Minimalism. An isolated subject, a lot of clear open space, and there's a story to be told. Again, your story might be different from mine, but it's a very stark representation of some kind of story. Next. Monochromes. You can turn any photograph into a monochrome, and monochrome is not always black and white. It can be sepia, as the one on the left is. The thing about monochrome images are they bring out a lot of fantastic detail. So don't be afraid to convert them and try them. And there are others. There are blue tone monochromes. Some of those are pretty fantastic. Play around with them a little bit. Next. Close up and macro. I don't quibble on these. Macro, true macro is defined as one-to-one representation. Close up is still the frame. The one on the left is a magnification of about 0.65. The one on the right is a 2-to-1 image. In other words, it's twice life size. For a quarter to be 1-to-1, it would be edge to edge. If you're very interested in that, come to the Fun with Photography page, get a hold of me. I can tell you how to do it cheaply. It's really not expensive. You don't have to buy a dedicated macro lens. Next. ICM, my favorite way of photographing these days, mainly because my hands shake. Maybe that's it, I don't know. And my eyes are bad. But it's making intentional movements, tiny, slow, sometimes very unnoticeable movements in order to produce effects. It's easy to do, it's hard to master. But once you do, it's addictive and it is so much fun. Next. Abstract. On the different ways to produce abstract images. Zooming in and out is on the left, or just shooting at weird angles with different light is on the right. Next. Still life. The most prevalent form of still life today, and the one I hate the most, is food photography. People in restaurants taking pictures of their dinner. Honey, let's post this on Instagram. No, please don't do that. Next. And finally, architecture. It doesn't have to be of buildings and structures. Could be of things like statues, objects that have some appeal, some lines, some curves, bridges. You know, anything that is solid, man-made falls into the category of architecture. And that's it for my portion, Johnson.
All right. Well, Sandra will be the next one.
Okay, I'm ready.
Sandra?
Okay. Hi, everybody. So I would imagine when people think of New York City, they think of tall buildings, bright city lights, Broadway, museums, restaurants, not of sunrises, sunsets, and nature. But as a runner, I get to explore all the nooks and crannies that most people do not see. And what I love about my photography, and I really mean this, it's simple, like my runs. I do not have any special equipment other than my phone camera and my eyes wide open. So in this picture, I was running south along the East River. This picture captured my attention because it was framed so perfectly. It was like I was entering a framed picture as I was about to go underneath the Williamsburg Bridge. what also caught my attention was the beautiful colors in the distant backdrop of the lower Manhattan. Although it was very, very cold that afternoon, the colors south of this bridge were so warming and inviting. This next picture, go ahead, Jonathan. This next picture, although it's a completely day and time, it's me actually under that Williamsburg Bridge, except for I'm facing towards Brooklyn and Queens. I've been trying to get this picture for a really long time, but in the moments it takes for me to actually run under this bridge, that sun has already moved past it. So I was so pleased not only to capture the sun, but the ripples, if you see the ripples in the water, which really, to me, made this photo come alive, because the uniqueness and the danger of this river is the water's current, because it flows in multiple directions. So that's what kind of makes it really dangerous, like if you were to fall in. And I just want to say that I can no longer run under the Williamsburg Bridge because they're doing all kinds of construction. Next. Okay, one of my favorite things to do when I'm taking pictures of the sun and clouds is to look and see different formations that the sky creates. That's by far my favorite. In this particular picture, I just saw this dragon. And although I do not name my photos, oh my God, I named this the sun in the belly of the dragon. And you can see the sun is in the, if you could see the dragon, I can't see how anyone cannot see the dragon, but that may be possible and that's okay. And the lighting within the belly, okay, and the river, the reflection really made this picture pop for me. Next. Okay. So in this next picture, I almost feel like there's no explanation. It just took my breath away. I have never seen in the city a sunrise with such vibrant colors in all the years I've been running. And when it happens, like running to catch the sun under the bridge, I've learned just to click away. Just click away, because in the moments, it's gone. I've seen beautiful, beautiful sunrises and say, oh, but I want that spot. I want point B. By the time I get to point B, there is no more sunrise the way that I've seen it. And I need to say that like all my photos that you're seeing are all raw and unedited. I'm just beginning to work. And I'm going to be hitting up John a lot to work with different apps. Next. Okay, so nature in the city. There is nothing like the squirrels in New York City. I do not feed them, but if you call them, they will come right up to you, right, Robert? Its relaxed position captured my attention, not only because I love photographing them, but they are such hams. And I'm a really big Alice Walker fan, so I cannot walk anywhere and not notice color, especially the color purple. I just can't. So this whole, this just was waiting. It was just so picturesque. It was just begging to be photographed. Next. And again, with colors, I don't know, sunflowers are not known to New York City. You could go out east and they have sunflower fields, but this was just, again, this sunflower and these beautiful pink flowers. And I'm not even sure what kind of flowers they were. And it was just, just immediately caught my attention. And again, I just had to photograph it. And this next picture, now this is another part of the river path, which going towards like 24th Street, which now I cannot run to because they are just totally redoing the area on the East River. But what I always liked going is because you can see there's like rock formations and stuff, and I'm looking at it, it's like, oh, these two Canadian geese look like they're conjoined on one body. And I'm like, and I know that's not possible, but I was like, oh, this is a really cool shot. And I just had to take it. And so I took it. Next. And this is my last photo of this presentation. And this was one of my early morning runs. And I love running in the city really early because there's always people out, but it's very still and quiet, and you see, you know, different lights on in people's kitchens or living rooms or whatever. And I just love the fact that the artist, okay, he used an old tenement building as his canvas, and he used the building's stairwell. You can see the stairwell here. He actually used the stairwell to juxtapose a young Michael Jackson and an adult Michael Jackson. And to me, it was so unique and so brilliant to have that kind of perspective. And if you look really close, you could actually see, you know, you'll see in the front of the building, you could see some of the fire escapes, and then there's the back of the building. This was a picture that I needed for my collection, especially since the gentrification that's gone on in my neighborhood is unbelievable. And I just needed to have this picture. So that's my pictures. And all I can say is that I use my phone. That's all I do is I just use my phone. I'm looking forward to every 2 years I get an upgrade with my phone. So I get an upgrade in my camera, and I'm waiting for the 15. And something that John had mentioned in his presentation that I'm very excited to be able to have once I get my phone updated is to be able to take macro pictures. So yeah. So if you're into photography, just snap away. You'll find something. It's just so much art and beauty wherever you live. So thank you for letting me share my photos. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. And the next one will be Debbie Quinn. And Debbie, take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm a hobby photographer who enjoys capturing photos of what I see while making them as true and accurate as I can. I like to chase light and shadows to draw attention to colors and lines. I try to find the extraordinary and everyday occurrences that our eyes often miss. And I recently started taking lens ball photography. Next. Taking photographs is fun. Most of the time I use my cell phone camera, which these days are so well made and offer so many features. I began to take landscape photos, which I call Lenscape photos. My lens ball passion began with the 2020 pandemic. I was inspired to stay creative while isolated, so I took up photographing lens balls. And with study and practice, I've developed a definitive style that people find unique. They've expressed how my colorful creations emit a sense of calm, a moment of zen, compelling me to share the beauty I captured in nature. Next. You'll see from these pictures, I like symmetry, refracting light, and natural colors, and the different types of clouds for my pictures. I love to see the way glass bends and refracts light. Clear glass gives jaw-dropping views that stimulate and excite or give calm, peaceful comfort. And it's still an awe-inspiring experience for me. And every evening I eagerly venture out onto my balcony to see what kind of sunset will appear. Next. Here's another example of symmetry, refracting glass, natural colors, different types of clouds. And the one on the left, you can see the brilliant sun. It must have been about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun is still a bit bright. And the other one, the one on the right is, it's a bit more cloudy, and the diffused clouds cause a whole different capture of the refraction. Next. Here's an example of, what would you call those glasses? Not effervescent, luminescent glasses. On the left, you'll see the regular color, what they look like during the daytime, but add the drama of the nighttime and you see how different it comes out. And also I like to turn my glasses upside down, because if you put a glass right side up, it's so amazing how different the light goes through it to your eyes. And when they're upside down, the light bounces off the top of it and creates this luminescence. It's just beautiful. So this is the difference between daylight and sunset light. Next. These are examples of different lens balls that I've got. At first I bought the clear lens balls. Then I started experimenting with the colorful lens balls. These are small, maybe 1 inch, 2 inches in diameter. And things I look for when I'm setting up or staging my pictures, the symmetry, mirroring. I use glass, smoked glass as my staging. And I like the blue hour. During the day, you have the time that the sun rises and the sun sets. So that's called the golden hour, when the sun is actually in the sky during sunrise or sunset. And the hour before the sun rises or the hour after the sun sets, that's called the blue hour among photographers. And so I like using those hours and just seeing the different effects. And these ones were done during the blue hour. And the one on the right, I just tried experimenting and I turned it into black and white just to have a different effect. And I've learned to study sunsets and develop an understanding of such things as the sky patterns, the Earth's rotation on the sunset schedule, and whether a sunset will be a spectacular sunset on a certain night or whether it's going to be a dud. And also by studying crystalware and glassware, I'm learning about the limitations of cut glass and how glassware and like regular crystalware in your kitchen, just like wine goblets or vases, how they can reflect light differently when they're turned upside down. Every evening, the wild colors take my breath away. And through this process, I find my peace every day. Next. Lens balls are very hard and sturdy, but they're also very fragile and they must be handled carefully. If you decide to pick up a lens ball, which is, you can get them on Amazon, when you're using them, don't look directly into the sun at high noon. Like the first picture, I'm actually looking through my camera. I'm not looking at the lens ball, but some people look at the lens through the lens ball and their eyes, their retinas have been damaged. So just be careful with that. If you're going to use it at high noon when the sun is at its peak, it's not so bad when it's the sunset and the sun is going down. But just be careful with your eyes. And I'm also careful when holding the lens ball when the sun is high in the sky. As you can see in the other two pictures, you can see how it can burn your skin. It acts like a magnifying glass. It can start a fire also. Some people have put it in the back of their cars. They toss the lens ball, they'd be going somewhere and they'd smell something in the back seat. And it was the lens ball being burning a hole in their upholstery. So you got to be careful. And I always keep it covered. Either we use it, put it in a sock or a bag, and just to keep it, just to avoid eye damage and damage of your carpet or wherever you keep them. Just store them properly and away from direct sunlight. Next. My other passion is street photography. I used to photograph a lot, but I just joined these new Facebook groups and meetup groups for hobby photographers. And they really challenge you to try to capture things, in everyday life in public places. And I like to chase light and shadows. And as I said, I like to draw attention to the colors and lines. And as you can see in these three pictures, one is a mural, another is a statue, another is symmetry. I like to find the extraordinary in everyday occurrences that our eyes often miss. Next. Now, this is a very dramatic picture, and I just want to show the difference between color and black and white. Color, you get a different sense. The energy is totally different from black and white. If you see the one on the left, you'll feel differently. The one on the right is very dramatic, and you just have to ask yourself, which do you prefer? The one on the left, the color, or the black and white? Next. The same here. Here's another example of capturing life in public places. I was in New York City's Grand Central Station, and I came across a photographer taking pictures of a model in a tutu. The natural light coming in from above drew my attention to the figure who was just standing there, standing still, wearing red and white. And a lot of people were taking pictures of her because it was just so captivating. And then you have to ask yourself, what are you attracted to on the black and white or on the color photo? What stimulates you? And okay, next. Here's another picture taken in Grand Central Station. I love open spaces like this, and I love good lighting and tiles and marbles that reflect, and they provide reflections for the light to bounce off of. As you can see, the drama of the black and white is more daring than the softer color, at least for me. How is it for you? Next. Here's a picture I took on the left. I took this picture from a train slowly pulling out of a station. I used my cell phone photo editing tools to make the changes that you see on the right. I erased all the power lines. I gave color, and it just changed it. And that's how you can do this with anybody can do this using just playing around with your cell phone editing tools. Next. I took this picture and I was staging it, and then I saw some chemtrails in the sky, and I don't know if they're chemtrails or jet stream, whatever. And I quickly set up this scene to capture and make use of the chemtrails and took this picture. Next. Next, I want to, okay, seeing color in nature. I just wanted to highlight all the brilliance you can see in nature that really take our breath away. And looking at these photos, I took these photos with my cell phone camera as well, just capturing the shadows and lights and colors. And none of my photos, except for the ones that are black and white or where I edited them, most of these ones haven't been edited. It's just the brilliance of the new cell phone cameras that are out now. Next. I urge anyone who loves taking photos, just always have your camera or your cell phone camera ready. I can still remember this sunny morning as I was taking my walk, and the feeling I got when I passed this tree on my property. I did a double take and whipped out my phone camera. It was early morning and the sun delivered the shadow that soon disappeared as the sun rose in the sky. And I would pass by that tree days and days after, and I could never get that same effect. So I was so happy that I found, I was so happy that I was able to capture this. It was really nice. Next. So all I can say is grab your camera, get out there and shoot pictures. See the world around you, capture what brings you joy, do what makes you happy. Have fun. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Debbie. That was amazing and wonderful pictures. Last but not least, we got Robert Vasquez Pacheco, who is going to present his pictures. Robert?
I am very visually oriented. And so for me, anything, I guess my favorite sense is the sense of sight. And so I'm always looking at things and I'm always exploring things to see just to see them, to look at them, to experience them. Because once you see them and experience them, they become part of your experiences in your life. And they're things that you carry with you. That is one of the great things about beauty, is that anything beauty will always be with you. You see something beautiful, it'll stay there. It goes into your heart, it goes into your soul. So it's always important to remember that and to see that there is actually beauty everywhere. William Blake talks about seeing, what is it? Oh, forget it. I'm not going to use that quote because I don't remember it. I want to use another quote though, and you can change. Next, Jonathan. There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. So when you photograph something, you see it, and it's the only way that you will see it, and it is your expression. No one can copy it. You know, they may copy it, they may try to emulate it, but what you see comes out of your soul, comes out of creativity. And so I encourage people to be creative, whether it's with a camera or a paintbrush or whatever, just to allow themselves to explore. One of the things that happens as we get older as adults is that we start to close off pathways in our lives, say, no, I can't do this, or I cannot do this anymore, or I don't want to do that. I mean, don't do that if you can. I would say try to remain open to experiences and open to the world around you, because that is actually what keeps us young and keeps us alive. One of the things that I photograph a lot are buildings. I'm fascinated with buildings. When I was a kid, much to the chagrin and frustration of my family, I hated to have my picture taken. I still do hate having my picture taken. But I will take pictures of other things. And if you notice in my pictures, I never photograph people. I only photograph objects, like buildings, like the Guggenheim example. And the one before, can you go back, Jonathan? Great. One of the things that fascinates me in New York are reflections. You see that all over the place. I take reflections in puddles, in windows, you know, of buildings, and it's always interesting to see the shapes and how they change with light, how they change with the surface that they're on. And I always think to myself, you know, who knows? There have been films about, you know, reflections in imaginary kingdoms that you see through photographs. And I always like to think of that when I'm photographing something in a reflection, see what is beyond that reflection. Okay, next, Jonathan. And my other big piece is the sky. I love taking pictures of the sky. It's actually one of the easiest subjects to have. I just find the fact that clouds change shape and even change color, and you get different feelings from the way they are, the fact that they're always moving, and the way that they interplay with the light. The picture in the center is one that I took in the late afternoon. There is something about the light in late summer in the late afternoon that reminds me of paintings by a Renaissance painter that's called Tiepolo. And I call them Tiepolo skies because they're these skies that have blue and red and pink. And it's just this amazing palette that you can see and that you experience. And, you know, all you have to do is look up. It's one of the reasons why I live where I live. I live in Brooklyn, and I live in Brooklyn because where I live, there are very low buildings. And that way, when I go out to the street, I have the sky as part of the cityscape for me. One of the things that happens in cities is that we forget that. We forget that there is a sky above us. And so we end up, you know, ignoring the fact that there's this incredible light show overhead. So I think, is that one more? Ah, okay. And the other obsession, water towers. New York City is the only city that has water towers, the only one. And so what I learned that I just started going around the city and photographing water towers because I find them fascinating. And you can see one on the right is one that was redone in Brooklyn with stained glass. So and so it's fascinating to see where they are, how they are located, you know, and to see how they interact with the rest of the environment around them. So I think that, and I have, God knows, I have too many pictures of water towers, but you know, they are fun. I would say that look around and see what interests you. You don't need anyone to tell you what interests you. You know what interests you. But I would say look around and see what interests you so that you can say, okay, I want to photograph this. I want to take a picture of this. You know, use whatever you have. If you have, if you have a cheap phone, use a cheap phone. If you have something that's more expensive, fine. Or if you have a fabulous camera, again, that's great. use the tools that you have. Part of being creative is being creative with what we have in our heads, not just the things that we do, but the tools that we use to express that creativity. So, and I think that I'm gonna do, because I love doing quotes, one last one, which is by my favorite author, French writer, whose name is Marcel Proust. And Proust said, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." Thank you.
Beautiful quotes, beautiful conclusion, Roberts. That was amazing. And yes, the group, and in case you guys do not know, again, if you haven't been on the platform, the link is now in the chat. It's called, the website is community.seniorplanets.org. It is a social platform, and the group Fun with Photography is just an amazing place where you can just post whatever picture you have. And remember, it doesn't have to be like professionally taken pictures. They could be pictures that you've just taken on your morning walk, and it's just beautiful. And you also get a chance to see all the beautiful pictures from other artists and other members. So please do keep the camera with you. And just like Sandra said, it's a very good way to also to stay active. Like you step outside, be more active, take pictures, and that's very good. I see that we have at least 14 chats. We have Johnny. Johnny, is there any question in the chats, or people have any questions for the artist who presented?
Barbara had her hand up earlier, Jonathan, and then she put some questions in the chat room about what kinds of cell phones do each of the presenters use, brand and model and stuff like that. Barbara, if you would like to.
Sure. I actually use an iPhone. It's the first time I actually got an iPhone, and they have great cameras, but the reality is that many different brands of camera, cell phones now have good cameras. So what you have the technology, it's there, it's available. It can be relatively, and I'm saying relatively cheap, but the important thing is what you see and how you capture it. And what I wanted to say also is that, you know what? There are millions of photographers in the world, millions. And you know what? Who cares? You do your work, you do what gives you pleasure, you do what you want to do. And don't let anyone intimidate you. Don't go on to any site and say, oh my God, that's I can't show my work there because it's such a fabulous photographer. I won't say pardon my French, but don't pay attention to that stuff. That is how people stop you from doing things. And I would say, just do it. Just go out and take a picture. Whatever your phone, whatever your phone is, or whatever your camera is, just use the tools that you have. And the tools are only as good as the artist that's using them.
Excellent. And I think Sandra mentioned in the chat room that she uses iPhone 12 Pro.
Yeah, I use the 12 Pro. I had most of my pictures were I have so many pictures. Like I said, I just snap away. I mean, my eyes are always wide open. What I will say about the iPhone camera is the amount of memory. You got to be careful. I choose the most memory, except for I don't go into the terabytes because that I know I won't use, but I use like 512 because I don't want to have to choose and delete, because that one picture that you saw, there's like probably 10, 15. And my photography interrupts my runs, but that's okay because I stop, and take all these pictures. So you got to be really careful with your memory. Otherwise, you find yourself having to delete. And I refuse to do that. So I have like probably on my phone undeleted almost 50,000 pictures, because I take pictures of I take pictures of everything. There is nothing. And I have to agree with Robert. At first, I thought I was going to be intimidated doing this, but you know what? My pictures are my pictures. I love them. And I'm that person that you can put in front of the TV and show your vacation pictures. I'm that person that's like, ooh, I love pictures, whether they're yours, mine, strangers, people that I see selling pictures they found an old trunk and had pictures on the table, and they're selling in the street. I love pictures. I just think pictures just tell a story so much, and it's your story. So yeah. And there's some really good cameras out there besides the iPhone. I think Debbie uses the Samsung. Those cameras on the Samsung probably blow the iPhone away, but
Yeah,
it's a preference of what phone you like. I prefer the iPhone.
right. And I mean, and they're also, let's be realistic, these phones are also prohibitively expensive.
Oh yeah, very expensive.
I mean,
It's over $1,000.
it can be over $1,000, and I'm sorry, I refuse to pay for anything that's more than my rent. That is my rule. If it's more
I
than
hear
my
you.
rent, I'm not going to do it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. But it's important to just use what you have, and I can't keep stressing that. Just use what you have. What you have is, that's the tool that you have. So do it. Go for it. I used to
Yeah, I rarely use a cell phone, and that picture I just put up in the chat, that's why. I use this bad boy. It's a Nikon D5200, and this has a 55, the lens I use most is a 55 to 300 zoom lens. And that picture I put up, I took yesterday in that nature preserve that I go to all the time. And that was almost 100 yards away in deep forest, shooting in between trees. I still got to work on some to try and get some of the foliage out of the way and get through it. But it's a doe and her fawn who were just kind of easing their way through there. And I knew something was in there, and I just waited on it for about 20 minutes until they kind of broke in between the two trees. This is a wetland area. And so you just have to kind of wait for them. But I would be hard pressed to even get anything that even remotely showed that they were there with a cell phone. It would be, matter of fact, it would be impossible, even with a screw-on or clip-on telephoto lens, because I had to adjust the settings on this to a point that I had to really bring it all back out in post-processing. So, I take my cell phone with me. I also have a pocket camera that literally fits in my pocket. It is as powerful almost as most of these larger cameras. And I do use my cell phone, and I put up on the website some things about cell phone photography and what you can do with them. I think the biggest thing, Robert's right. You use what you're comfortable with, you do with it, but you can get really good at it if you follow some basic rules, like getting close. Get closer than you ever thought you should. Use contrast. Sandra's pictures are very good because she's got contrast and color. And don't try and complicate them. Make sure that they're simple pictures, because too much in them will really not show up well. So yeah, use what you've got, and practice with it. You just have to practice. You can't just say, I'm going to go out and take a masterpiece. It's just not going to happen.
I would add to that composition. Look at what you're going to photograph and make sure, well, you don't have to make sure, but it's balanced, it's centered. I have tons of family photos with my grandmother's thumb like that in the photograph. Tons of photographs like that, so be aware of what you're photographing.
Jonathan, I was going to mention earlier in the chat room, Harold asked, have any of you all printed your images on metal?
Canvas.
On canvas?
I've used Amazon. They have a really cool. I printed some of my pictures, like that Belly and the Dragon. I printed that on canvas. Came out beautiful. I just love it. I gave this to my partner, but I just never, not metal. I don't know about metal.
Is Harold still here? Maybe he can expand on his question.
I've seen them. And there's one of the photographers I follow actually has a business selling some of those, but they're very, very high end, very expensive.
It's Harold. I was just asking because a friend of mine tried doing one of her photographs on metal. Came out pretty good. It looks, I guess it looks like any enlargement, but it has a little bit of brilliance to it because of the metal, glossy metal backing, I guess.
I've investigated using metal. Also, I did some experimenting with acrylic. So this is a print I did on acrylic. It's shiny.
Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, beautiful.
Huge. That's pretty cool.
It's just beautiful. I love it. And I think metal has a similar effect. I've seen it I've seen people use it. It's really cool.
And then maybe this question in the chat room is for John. Any advice on photographing animals?
Yeah,
From
and
Pete
I
Real.
respond with patience. You have to have
Oh.
patience. You have to understand the animals. These two deer, I knew there was something out there before I heard them. But I grew up in the woods. I grew up in Arkansas. I spent my entire life in the woods. I'm a country boy. And I knew something was out there, and the fawn was not as practiced as the doe at stepping around fallen branches. And then she stepped on something and I heard it. And then the doe looked up, looked at me to make sure that I was not going to be a threat. And so I just stood there and stood there and stood there and stood there and till my legs got numb from my back surgeries. But you also have to understand the behavior of the animals. I'm a biologist by training. So I can sit out with the hummingbirds in my yard for hours on end so they get used to me, and I can get within 10 feet of them. And so I can get close-ups that show their tongue coming out of their beak because they let me get close. So it's understanding the animals, knowing their behaviors, and knowing their habits. In other words, where they go, what times of days. Some of the ones like that one of that moth I had, I just had to follow it around. I just spent 30 minutes following that moth around. It kind of drove me crazy and made my back hurt, but you just have to go after it. It's like, no, you're not leaving. I gave you flowers, so you give me a photograph. That's just the deal. So a lot of it is patience and persistence and understanding them, and then getting some equipment that'll let you do it. And the reason I have this gigantic thing is because I can take macro photographs from a distance of 6 to 8 feet. I don't have to get close, which is critical with insects. And you will find that out when you start doing it. If you take an iPhone, you have to get on top of them, and insects don't like you to be on top of them. They get really irritated. And try that with a bee sometime, and they'll let you know. But from 6 to 8 feet away, it's not a problem. So a lot of it is, again, just being patient, following them for a while. So it's simple, but it's not easy.
One last question for John, actually. Which pocket camera do you use? It's the little camera that you showed.
Oh, that's a Lumix, Panasonic Lumix, ZS80. They still sell them. They're about $400, I think. And it has a functional zoom equivalent to my big Nikon. It's a 12 megapixel, which is all you need. I have a camera here that's 15 years old. It's an old Kodak. It's 4 megapixels. Some of the best photos I ever took were with this. So yeah, it's a little Lumix. There are several of them that are made. Panasonic Lumix is a great brand, and they make several of them. And you can also get them used. I buy all used equipment all the time.
And thank you everybody. Also, I just want to let you guys know that you can contact any of the artists and find more of their photographs on the Senior Planet community platform inside the Fountain Photography group. And just like I mentioned earlier, the link is in the chat, and I hope I will see you guys over there. Thank you again for all the contributors. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this event, and thanks to all the participants who wanted to give to participate in this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Senior
Thank you,
Planet.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Oates. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, Debbie,
Hope
Robert.
to see you all in Fun with Photography group. It's a great group.